Apparently so. I mean, nobody knows the full story, but the fact remains he did pretty much abandon her. Now, whether she deserved it or not, and I don't think she did, we'll probably never know. But he found the love of his life, Josie, and they lived together as man and wife from then on. And poor Maddie was just tossed to the wind.
Oh wow!
But we learned a lot from Maddie. I can't tell you too much because it's in book 2, but she threw us a couple of curves, and she's a part of our lives now. Let me put it that way.
Well, that's good. Now, in book 2, when is that going to be coming out?
We're going to finish it probably this month. It's about 95% through. We're basically cleaning it up right now, and then we'll present it to a publisher and see if they want to pick it up.
Oh wow!
But it's essentially done.
Now again, why don't you give out your website again where they can find your books, and then let's talk about because we got about 15 minutes left.
Sure.
Well, actually about 10 and a half. Talk about some of these other books you've written.
Okay. Yeah, our website for speaking with spirits of the Old Southwest. You can contact us at www.believeparanormal.com, and that's believe with BEELIEVE, paranormal. And they selected the bee because from ancient times the bee was considered a symbol of a messenger from the gods to the humans, from the spirit world to the real world. So that's kind of the story behind the bee.
Okay. And
they can look up my books at www.fournightspress.com, FOURKNIGHTS.com. That's where all my books. That's my site.
Well, I was looking at some of the books you got listed. I was in total shock. You've done a lot.
Well, I'm one of those very, very fortunate people. My work is what I love. I love writing. It's not work for me. It's a labor of love. It's fun.
Well, I mean, it's anything you do that you enjoy, it just makes such a big difference. And you're able to, write a book and do things that a lot of people can't do. And you enjoy it. And that is so awesome that you can do that. I mean, compared to somebody who has to go work at a shipyard or doing whatever, pumping gas, and you're able to, come up and make great books and great reads. And at the same time, you get to experience, some of the stuff that you're writing. And my hat's off to you. You're one lucky person.
I'm not exactly playing cowboy and Indians, but I am a kid playing with cowboys and Indians. Maybe it's a second childhood, but I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing. Every day is a new adventure.
Well, have you found with some of these things, communicating with the spirits, that some of the stories that were told about some of the spirits, weren't very accurate at all? Or has any of the spirits ever, try to tell you their side of the story, or give you information?
Yeah, there's you're familiar with the character John Ringo?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, again, OK Corral, Tombstone, Wyatt Earp, Ike Clanton, Ringo. If you saw the movie Tombstone or the movie Wyatt Earp, you know who I'm talking about.
Well, if I remember, Ringo started out as a good person, then went really, really bad.
Yeah, apparently he was, from what I can understand, he was a really decent fellow until he got drunk, and he got drunk a lot. But he was murdered, I forget the year, 1880-something. It was after the OK Corral. But he was murdered east of Tombstone, and we've got a chapter in Speaking with Spirits about that. And Ringo's gravesite is well known. It's marked. I mean, it's, again, one of those places you can drive right by and not know it. But Ringo is Dwight is fascinated by Ringo. I don't know if it would be proper to say one of his heroes, but he's always been fascinated with John Ringo. And we went out to the gravesite, and they've been out several times. And we did a couple of readings there, and we discovered that he's known as Johnny Ringo, and John hates the name Johnny.
Well,
He does not like.
most people don't like nicknames. No, so yeah.
Yeah, he says. Dwight was saying something Johnny, and I can't say the word on the air, but it was expletive Johnny.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
You know, I mean, we've got it recorded. He says that he dropped an F-bomb. Let me put it that way. F the Johnny, and it's recorded. So it's with us. It's John Ringo.
Okay, so you got
that was an interesting insight into Western history. I don't know if it would make the record books or anything like that, but it was an interesting insight.
What did the voice sound like?
Just a male voice.
Okay.
A strong male voice.
Okay. I mean, was it? Did it sound like he was upset?
It was angry. Like you would say it in a conversation. If let's say, I'll make this up. Say, Gary, I called you Spud. You would go, "Don't call me Spud." That type of response. It wasn't angry. It was just real quick.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't want to be called that. Not mean or anything like that. Just don't do that.
I bet you guys were really in shock when you got that.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else that's interesting. It's when a spirit calls you by name. That is real interesting.
When they know who you are?
Yeah, we've had that happen 3 times. And in fact, I'm thinking about putting that at the head of book 2. But, for example, we were at a place called Fort Rucker, which is an abandoned U.S. Army fort up in the Chiricahua Mountains. And I was doing my pendulum work, and Dwight and Ron and I were sitting down, and we were, had recorders going. And I said, "Hey, I think there are spirits here." And you can hear, "That's right, Dan."
Now that would really, I would say, "Hey, it's time to move on, guys."
Oh, no. It was like, "Speak to me more. Speak to me more."
Well, see, you're brave. I'm not.
Well, we haven't. I'm not saying that there are not negative forces or spirits out there or whatever. We have not encountered a single negative experience in all our work. We've been doing this several years now. We've never had a negative experience. We've had an unpleasant experience like the killing fields, but nothing negative, nothing to be frightened about.
Now, have you ever
nothing at all.
Have you ever had anything like strangely move or anything like that?
I was. There's a place called the Buford House. It's we have some friends who own it, and we spent a lot of time there. In fact, Dwight and Rhonda were married there. It's a bed and breakfast now. And I spent the night there. I've spent several nights there, as a matter of fact. But there were spirits of 3 children there who died, I guess, yellow fever or something. But they were really young children. And so whenever we go there, we'll read children's stories or we'll take toys or something just for the kids to play. And I took some small rubber balls about the size of a baseball, and I put them in one of the rooms and said, "These toys are for you kids to play with, and just do whatever you want to with them." I took pictures of it. And one of the balls dropped out of my hands and rolled under a bed, way, way under the bed. And I said, "Well, I'm not going to reach under that and drag it out. If the kids want to bring it out, they can bring it out." The next morning, that ball had moved from way under the bed to the foot of the bed, several feet away from the bed. Now, it did not roll down through the bed, because there was a big chest of drawers at the foot of the bed that it would have had to have gone through. So the ball, to move from under the bed, had to go out, down, and then across. Physically, it would be impossible for the ball to roll and do that. So somebody moved in, and it wasn't me. I was in another room. Oh. There was nobody else in the house.
That's the part, it always amazes me, when I get somebody calling in and they're telling me, that, like the example, like Liz telling me, that, her newer house was built where it was an old farmhouse before, but, like the bedroom doors opening and closing, the refrigerator opening, they're curious, well, what type of food she has or what that, device is or whatever. But, that would be kind of eerie to be in your house and, have, things like that happen.
Well, we just did a session at a place called the Can in Tombstone. It was an old Chinese restaurant. And as a matter of fact, Dwight had worked there for many, many years. It's a photo shop now. You go and dress up in cowboy gear and they take your picture. But Dwight had worked there, and he said oftentimes things would fly off the wall and across the room. He said you would come in and you would see a cowboy hat or a scarf or something just fly off the shelves and go across the room.
Well, it tells me, that I do really feel that, the spirits are trying to let you know that they're still there. Again,
I think so.
I had a guest on maybe 10 months ago. I wrote a book about, the ghosts of Gettysburg. And, he bought an old house that went back to like maybe the 1860s or, okay. And, they weren't living in it at that point because they were remodeling the inside of it. And him and his, I guess, friend or relative or son or somebody, they'd be, working in there. And then they would hear like banging, the next room. Then, at night they would take their tools and put them in another room. The next morning they come in and like maybe the saw was gone and moved into a different room. Or the hammer was, he left it like on the ladder. It was in another room. And he said, I didn't leave it there. And
exactly.
Yeah. And that's what got him to actually wrote about the Gettysburg, Ghosts of Gettysburg. And then he said that him and his son, were at the battlefield. And, what really got him to write the book is, there was always rumors around, I guess you could hear, marching and sometimes, the bugles and stuff like that. He heard the singing and marching, and that's all it took for him.
Well, speaking of marching, that happened to us. We were at Fort Rucker, and we were in, I think it's the officers' quarters, and we were sitting there. We were doing another session, so the recording was on, and we were chatting, and Rod and I stopped and looked at each other, and we said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yeah." And Dwight had just said, had asked the question, "What did you guys do here?" And another voice said, "Marching." And Rhonda and I heard footsteps marching outside on gravel. And we've got that recorded. But, in fact, it was so realistic. I walked out to see if there was maybe a cow walking by or something like that. And it's all grass out there. There's no gravel out there. But we recorded several feet marching on gravel. Right after Dwight had said, what do you guys do? And we heard the word marching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's why we would hear marching instead of, hey, Dan, Dwight, Rhonda, how you doing? I don't know. That's what we got.
Well, maybe they were, practicing, I mean, the ones that didn't cross over.
Marching.
Yeah, maybe they did.
I can't see that.
Hey, Dan, our time is up. I would like to, maybe in a month if you have time, maybe come back on the show and we can talk a little bit more.
This is fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. You've been a great guest.
When the new book is out, how about that?
Please do. In fact, send me a copy, will you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I will do.
Well, hey, Dan, I really enjoyed having you on the show, and, keep going out and communicating with the spirits.
I'll let you know what goes on.
Okay, sir. You have a great week.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for being on.
Bye-bye.
Wow, it makes me really, come to a conclusion. I think there is life after death, and I don't know what it is yet. But, I've heard so many, ghost hunters say that, the spirits are trapped on Earth. And if you encounter a ghost, it's like a tape recorder on a loop. It just repeats itself over and over and over. I disagree with that. Like Dan was saying, that somebody called out his name. They knew who he was in one case. Or, they're communicating with them, giving them, information. Even things moving. So it tells me, there is something out there. Again, near-death experience or when you die, do you go to the light or do you go to the darkness? Well, I don't know what to tell you. That is a decision you're going to have to make. And just think, if you make that wrong decision, oh boy, could you imagine you might be in heaven? Or you could be in hell. Anyway, we'll be back on tomorrow. I just want to say thank you, everybody out there. Tell your friends, please, about Night Dreams Talk Radio. Please share it on your media. We are growing fast. We have been voted by a local trucking company with their drivers as the #2 talk show when their drivers are out at night, driving across the country, they're listening